Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the European crossover webinar. And we're seeing the dollar continue to go on and strengthen here. And let's go and move this out of the way. The dollar's continued to move higher, and henceforth, obviously, the euro moved lower. One of the things that we covered on here, and that's why I didn't even update, is the analysis has stayed the same. This was the key yesterday that we had talked about right here in the basic technical here. The euro downside momentum continues towards 113, not expecting a respite until stops are taken out with initial support at 1286. A daily close below, that's at 1286, will set up a challenge of 1218. And that's what happened yesterday. We closed below this 1286. We eventually took out those stops. The market kind of meandered around that 1309, pulled up a little bit, but eventually took those stops out. And the key thing is that if you look on the daily chart, we got below the 1286. And the next stop is here, this 1219. And the momentum is, it's hard to fight that kind of momentum. We saw the euro trying to push up a little bit higher in Asia and just a very little bit higher. And you can see right here as the market tried to work up a little bit. This had to do with, let's go move over here. The bund, which at the time you saw this thing dropping off like crazy. This actually as we saw this drop off, that actually helped. You remember we talked always about the inverse relationship. So at the time that actually got a little bit of a bid into the euro. And you can see this as the market continued to work higher. As the bund continued to go on and sell off the time. Obviously, we've seen a recovery. You can see this inverse relationship. So then as we start to come back here in the bund, you can see right here on the 30-minute. Subsequently, you see the euro turn around, go down. So you want to pay attention to that relationship. I was watching this during the Asian session as the bund continued to sell off, and you got this a little bit of a bid, not a whole lot here in the euro. Also, another market is the dollar yen. The dollar yen has made it up until we had our bias chart resistance from yesterday. Came right into that area. 1060 right there. Actually, we're in the chat room. We're talking about 1060, 1063. We've made this run up here in the dollar yen. And there's our 63 we're talking about. We're referencing here. We had 1060 and so 1063 here. So we're right there, just hugging right there near those highs, or at those highs, I guess I should say. So we're going to move into the morning bid. And let's take a look at what's on tap for today. We've got really nothing until we get to JOLTS, jobs openings, and then of course after equities close, we've got the API stocks. So definitely lighten the calendar. So let's go on and move in now to the morning bid. Spanish politics resemble a minefield these days as soon-to-be confirmed government plans to remove the remains of fascist dictator Francisco Franco to a less monumental resting place raises passions over 40 years after his death. And while independence remains a distant prospect, the Catalonian question may still have the power to unseat the national government. 12 Catalan secessionist leaders go on trial in Spain's Supreme Court today, charged for their role in failed independence bid 16 months ago. The defendants face charges of rebellion, sedition, and misuse of public funds. Their supporters say they're political prisoners and that the trial itself is political, notwithstanding the more conciliatory tone of the government of Pedro Sanchez. Verdicts will take months, but the trial starts a day before Sanchez's minority government faces a vote. It's Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte's turn to come to the European Parliament in the latest of a series of debates with national leaders on the future of the European Union. Given the range of subjects on which the government is at odds with Brussels, from EU rules on national budget deficits to migration, his appearance will be more closely watched than most. It's also hard for him to skirt the row with France, which is worsened after the five-star leader, Luigi Di Maio, went to Paris to egg out the yellow vest protests against Emmanuel Macron, or should I say egg on. Prime Minister Theresa May will address Parliament, the latest Brexit developments today, but with the sign of movement out of the impasse, briefers say her top line will be that lawmakers should hold their nerve, presumably to be translated as something like keep quiet and give me more line. Bank of England Mark Carney's speech at the Financial Times event today is likely to be more of a downbeat after the bank confirmed last week the UK is heading towards its slowest growth in a decade. Global stock markets breathed a sigh of relief overnight, and signs of compromise in the standoff over the U.S. government funding and positive noises around the Sino-U.S. trade talks in Beijing, and the dollar stood out over the past 24 hours as it surged to its best levels of the year so far. The dollar index briefly touched its highest since December 18th overnight, with euro sliding to its lowest since mid-November 1265 on growing anxiety about the stalling of the Eurozone economy and the European's central bank likely response, with analysts stressing the fact that a pause in the Federal Reserve's interest rate campaign still leaves it reducing its balance sheet by some $50 billion a month and tightening liquidity in the process. Dollar strength has been underscored around the world. Dollar yen hit its highest since December at 1064, and comments from U.S. and Chinese officials that the two sides were moving towards a deal beat the March 1st deadline for the U.S. tariff rises on Chinese goods and helped lift Shanghai stock 0.7% higher. Japanese Nikkei, returning from Monday's holiday, outperformed in Asia and gained more than 2%, with the aid of a weaker yen. U.S. stock futures were up on the news, and a tentative deal had been reached to avert another U.S. government shutdown, although there will be no agreement in funding President Trump's border with Mexico, and no sign yet that Trump has endorsed the agreement. Back in Europe, concerns about the Brexit impasse added to the economic gloom. Sterling slipped to a 6-week low on Monday after UK data showed economic growth last year with the worst since 2012. UK May is due to present her latest Brexit update to Parliament later on Tuesday, and the Bank of England Mark Carney also speaks. And let's go and move on. And just some real quick light news, and it is very light. Canadian dollar dips as oil falls. The dollar index jumped as concerns grew that the latest round of U.S.-China talks may not yield a deal. People want to be long dollars here. Scott Lampard. Oil price fell as worries around the resumption of U.S.-China trade talks overshadowed support. You have the bond market looking at the strength of the labor market in Canada and saying, we feel like higher rates are warranted. And on to the dollar at a 2-month high on funding deal. The dollar held at 2-month highs, and the Aussie dollar gained on Tuesday as expectations of progress in trade talks towards the U.S. and China and a tentative deal to avoid a government shutdown lifted sentiment. The dollar is a market's pet currency at present, regardless of whether concerns about global economy are on the rise or withers, risking connection with the trade conflict between China and the U.S. as well as the government shutdown. Against the basket of its currencies, the dollar was broadly steady at 96.99. Well, we've pushed a little bit higher than that, climbing to its highest level since mid-December. The dollar's rise in recent days are also being triggered by the growth concern of the outlook of its major rivals, notably the euro and the British pound. Sterling was steady at 28.78 before a statement by Prime Minister May. And also, this was a note that just came out. Eurozone has not been made crisis-proof, so the European Union Central Bank is still at risk of having to function as a crisis response unit, says Jens Weidmann. Certain issues, the lack of credibility of fiscal rules or the harmful sovereign bank nexus, still have to be adequately addressed. He argued fighting crisis forces unelected central bankers to take political decisions which are difficult to square with democratic principles. Acting beyond the mandate would also undermine people's trust in the central bank, Weidmann said. At the end of the day, it could become more and more difficult for the ECB to focus on the promise of a stable currency. The reason I posted this because really that opens the door for even the euro to even move a little bit lower. And lastly, just a quick touch on gold. Edges up on the dollar pullback. Focuses on the China trade talks. The present strength of the dollar is not sustainable against a backdrop of very dovish Federal Reserve. There are plenty of uncertainties for traders to worry about this week, including trade talks, Brexit debate, which should support gold prices. A new round of talks between China and the U.S. are starting in Beijing on Monday, with the two world's largest economies trying to hammer out a deal before March the 1st. The dollar index fell 1/10 to 96.999. I don't know if you'd call it fell. Gold prices fell after hitting a 9-month high at 1326. Ongoing trade tensions and concerns about global growth continue to provide a level of support. Meanwhile, congressional negotiators said late on Monday they had reached a tentative deal on border security funding that would avert another partial government shutdown to start on Saturday. So we'll see how this all plays out. And we'll move on to the euro. Well, as I said, you can see here we had 1286 on the daily. And we had this asterisk because it was a key daily support. So when we come over here to the euro, one of the people had asked yesterday in the chat room about the euro, and they were saying, it's so oversold. What do you think about it? And they're asking, in a general sense. And I made a comment. I said, look, we broke 1286. I go, so we broke this key daily support here. That opens the door for us to move lower. And the key thing is, because you can see here on the daily closes, look how this has been significant right here, all the way across here. So if we broke that, that really opens the door to move lower. And one of the things I pointed out to the gentleman was that you can think about anybody who bought the euro just from yesterday are all underwater. So, if you were to be, if you're long the euro and you bought the euro, you're thinking, wait a minute, how much further, excuse me, how much lower can this thing go? And if you were going to hang on, you have to look at saying, well, if I'm going to hang on to this euro and I'm hoping for any kind of a bounce, probably not going to even see any relief until maybe this market even gets to around 12.19, and hopefully there'll be a bounce. I'm thinking if you're looking at someone on the other side, one of the things that helps when you're trading is, and not only we talked about this yesterday, the momentum as these EMAs across is still opening the door, although this is a very wide gap here. Generally, when you see a big wide gap here, in the EMAs, you'll see a turnaround. Now, this is even a bigger, wider gap here, but you can see here, look how much, and then how we quickly came back. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily going to turn around, but when we look at the forefront, is there anything to turn anything around? And there really isn't, because the economic reports have come out, and unfortunately for the Eurozone, there aren't any coming out today because we know it would be just worse. It wouldn't be better. Maybe that'll stabilize it a bit, but we've broken past this key support here. So, as I was trying to explain to the gentleman, when you get past here, then you have to think about, from the technical point, you got all the momentum pushing lower. And really the key thing is that when you close here on a daily, and remember, whether you're looking on a 5-minute chart or a 30-minute chart or an hourly or a 4-hour, the higher the time frame, the more important the significance. So you can see how key this was here on the daily, coming all the way across to 1286. You lose that 1286, it opens the door for the market to move lower. Plus, like I said, the thought was that look how many days we've been down. No matter who's bought the euro, by the next day you're in worse shape than you were the day before. And then you look at people just saying, okay, well, I'm going to get long here at 13.25, at 13.30. You know what? I'll buy a little more at 13.09. Hopefully they don't take out my stops at 12.91, and we just keep going lower and lower. So it pushes that momentum. And then when you take out a key area like this, then you know that the market is going to not only going to push lower, but it's almost like as if you sustain an injury. And a market is not going to turn around and just jump right up unless there's some crazy catalyst that were to come out. So in this particular situation, then the market has to do more homework. And so if the market were to try and put it at bottom, the market would want to come down here and test, see if we can hold this area, try and push up a little bit higher. Then maybe you may have the makings. But as I said, trying to come in long, thinking, well, it's just lower, is a tough row to hoe. And one of the things that maybe I talked about with the gentleman was that, when we were referencing that, I said, hey, look, the dollar index has gone up. Now, yesterday was going to be 8 days in a row. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're pushing to 9. Here's that key resistance. But the point I was trying to make with the gentleman also said, hey, it's been up 8 days in a row. And then I put in caps, I put but, and then that's what I was referencing is the euro's got a big problem here because of that. So anyway, that's what I was referring to. And on the Asian analysis, I didn't see where there was anything to do in the Asian analysis because everything that we were looking at from the beginning of the week, which is yesterday, has played out as far as, okay, if we take out 20.86, where are we going to? Well, there's no change here. It's going to be 12.19. Now we can look on a 2-hour to see if there's anything we can find in the meantime, and we'll do just that. There's a little bit of support in here. It's actually doesn't even come until right there. Right there, come across 1234. So we'll find a little bit of a respite at 1234, just a little bit. So until we get there, we'll call that our support. But from a daily point of view, everything points towards, as we mentioned, 12.19. But there's some support at 12.34. This euro is in some tough shape. Almost seems crazy going to say 1329, but that would actually be the key resistance up in here for now. 1309 is a long ways away. We're going to go, you do have some here at 1315, but the real resistance is 1329. And we're going to go at 1329 because you don't want to get too excited if we get a short little bit of a short covering rally. So the real resistance is going to be, there is some at 1315, but it's the real areas here is 1329, and don't forget 1286. We would need, that's important on a daily. So let's go here. So this market they would be looking to sell this thing right here, all the way up to 1329. This market would be a sell. The key thing would be is if we get a daily close above 1286. But it would take two consecutive daily closes above 1286, not one, two consecutive daily closes to try and put in some type of a thinking that, okay, we're a little bit stretched. Now we are a little bit, but once again, the support didn't come until 1234. We had some, on this 2-hour chart here down to 1267. We're defending that a little bit, but want to keep an eye on these boons for sure. We'll move into cable. Well, we're good making this move down here to 2820, and that's some nice support in here. Right here, 2820. And that's going to be our support for today. You see all this coming across. Yeah, one of the things that we've seen this dollar just made make this kind of run that's just been like relentless, to say the least. But part of this, and I don't want to say it's in default because it's a basket of currencies. Is that when you see this weakness going across the board, whether it's a euro, whether it's a cable, same thing. Some of the slowest stuff since 2012. It has no choice but to go up. It's almost like when you look at it, if the euro goes, it has an inverse relationship with the euro. So obviously, if the euro is pushing lower for its own very reasons, it's like the dollar has no choice. It's good. The index, it has no choice. It's going to go higher. So the same thing here with the cable here. We're pushing lower now. Resistance. This is this area right here, come right across this line. That's going to come in at 29.36. That's where the resistance is. Anything before then, you can look at 28.89, and that's going to be a little bit of resistance. But the real resistance is going to come in there at 29.38. The market is very oversold. So you can see a pretty good little bounce back in here, but this is where the real resistance comes in, 29.36. Anything in the meantime is just going to be just bouncing around. I think at this point now we have to, let's take a look at this on the daily. I have to still give it the bullish, even though we look more towards the short term. You look at this, hard to say, oh, this is very bearish now. So at this point, we're going to have to hold this 28.20. And I think the 28.20, look at that coming across on the daily. Look how important this level is. Should see some support coming in there. Let's go into the Aussie dollar. No, the Aussie dollar is trying to hold near these lows. And the key level here, you can see that across on the daily, is at 70.27. We're just holding here. Let's take a look here on the 2-hour charts. Well, it's going to be 70.43 right there until things change. 70.43, and I think we may have already had that from our Asian analysis as we started out the week. And that's what I'm saying. We haven't had a whole lot of change here. Remember, any kind of good news out of China, this thing's going to take off like a rocket ship. But we have to take a look at where the initial resistance is. I think we had that, was 71.42. Yeah, that's still going to stay the same. And it's not even that close, although it's not that far away. But once again, be careful with this. Like I said, if we do get those good headlines out of the U.S. and China talks, this thing will take off. And as I said, I don't think you'll make it up to around 72 for starters. You can see that come right across. Let's go on and make a notation of this one here. So this will be for starters when they hear that news or get some good news. But I think, when I say for starters, this is where they'll start to go on and challenge this market. Be interesting probably there, and obviously 72, 76. But I think people that step in short, that they're going to hang on. It's going to be pretty hard to shake these people out of their positions if they start to throw in shorts at 72 cents and on up. So no change there here in the Aussie dollar. From here, we'll go and move into the dollar Swissy. And boy, did we have a big run in that Swissy from yesterday, actually in the Asian session, I should say. And we are making the most of this. Remember, we had a par 50, I think it was par 60. Let me see what we had here. Yeah, par 60. And we actually came up there, and then we faded back. Now let's go into the 2-hour chart. Not a whole lot, but we did go in and fade back. And look, here we are assaulting again. Of course, obviously making the most of this run up here with the cash dollar index. So where's resistance going to be? Let's take a look. Right there, par 82. right there. Now we take out the highs. We made up a precise par 97. We'd be looking at 10108. There is some resistance here at 82. If the dollar so it's actually going to be 80, which we're not even that far away. And if we get past there and Goose stops, you think the stops would be even push even further, but we knocked everybody out. I think anyone that would, if we were to be able to clip the stops, I don't think we'd see like a big run up in here. So it'd be 101.08. We got some here, par 80. Let's just be on the safe side. It's going to be 101.08. So 108. Well, you can see the support there. Par 28. Par 28 on support. Boy, after being sleepy for so long, who would have thought that who would have thunk it, as I said, the dollar Swissy now waking up. Let's go move it now to the dollar CAD. One of the things that we covered here, once again, that's why we didn't do any analysis, because we had everything kind of played out, because the Monday laid out what we were going to go on and do. So in the dollar CAD, dollar CAD is successfully rebounding from the weekly support with two strong daily closes and only a pause after a strong jobs report. Upside potential is to 34.18, with solid resistance should appear at 33.54 confluence with 33.66, the 50%. Well, we're just holding here. This is, as I mentioned, there's a potential that we could come up to 34.18. But this is where you see a lot of good resistance coming across on this daily, and where I'm thinking, okay, and you can see yesterday we kind of just held our own. Actually, once again, it actually finished kind of well. If you think about it, of course, the dollar index was stronger, but I'm saying is, after that big jobs report, we came down, we finished okay. We could have actually tested a little bit lower. So overall, it's held up very well. Obviously, crude oil did break lower, and we'll get to crude oil, same thing with the Asian analysis, because we were talking about the importance of crude oil, although here it actually, we got below the 51.80, I think it's 51.85, but remember, we needed two consecutive 2-hour closes below that, and it would point lower. Well, we were able to defend it. We got one 2-hour, but not the second one. So once again, everything still remains the same. There's no changes here in the dollar CAD, unless you're trying to scalp for a few, a couple of nickels or something. But everything remains the same here in the dollar CAD. Go back. I'll write in here 33.13, just for, I really don't even like it even that close. But for right now, we'll go with this 33.12. As you can see here, it's trading in a very, very tight range. Right there, 32.50 for support. You can see on the daily, got a little bit of a hammer. Let's go on and move into the Asian analysis on that. Once again, still hasn't changed anything. That's played out here until it changes here. West Texas Intermediate, 2 hour, finds support at volume level 52.50, but remains in a sell mode. Resistance comes in at 55.39. A 2 hour close below 51.85. I don't know what I did mention. I guess I mentioned yesterday, but not here in the Asian analysis. We needed 2 consecutive 2 hour closes below 41.85. And I guess in the Asian analysis, I didn't put it here, but we talked about it in the webinar yesterday. We'll go in here. Here's that important 51.85 that we talked about. And what we're looking for was 2, I think someone had asked me in the room, I don't remember who it was, and I go, yeah, 2 consecutive 2 hour closes below 51.85. And I know we mentioned on the analysis because we needed 2 of those because the thought was it would push us down to, for starters, 49.99. So we needed 2 consecutive 2 hour closes on that. Basically, and I think I remember saying basically a 4 hour chart, but it's 2 consecutive 2 hour closes because we would dip below it, and we actually broke below this 51.85, came down here, but notice how, here's the key thing. You see here, look. Notice how we broke below the 51.85. Remember on the way down, I was looking for 51.82 down here, and we had held and we saw a smart little rebound here. Well, we got that low below 51.85. They took out and cleaned all the stops, and look how they rallied back, and look, they closed just above the 51.85 here. So we've had a pretty nice little pushback here. And we talked about this also, the volume at 52.50. So we're holding this 52.50 at least for now. We've tested the downside. Now we're trying to push up to the upside. Support here, and they've defended themselves. They've cleaned out all the stops, which is crude likes to do. You have to be careful with this market. It's going to come in right there, 52.29, right there for support. 52.29. The upside. Well, we just came up here to the 38%. Basically almost to the pip, or tick, I should say. Resistance is going to come in right there. 38% is there, but it's going to be 53. 53 even. So we're not that far away. 53 cents. Or $53, I should say. And let's go move into the dollar yen. Well, yesterday we had our bias chart resistance at 1060. And we talked about this from a daily standpoint. You know, we talked about this with the euro too. Remember, we're talking about the significance of when you take out these levels. And what happens is when you do just that, it drives the momentum higher, because then people say, oh, well, they broke out this level, now move higher. We almost saw this market slide. Remember, we had, I think it was Friday, we had just closed below the 977, but we recouped it. And we're talking about 1034. This is, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, reminiscent of the gold. Remember when on the way up with gold, and we were looking for 1304, we're looking for 1304, and when the market had barely paired back, and then we started to see this market push back, we're like, this market's not going to be satisfied with 1304. We're going to go to 1323, which is what we did. Well, it's the same thing here. We've been talking about this market getting to 1034. There was even a level there around 1038. We said, you know what? They're not going to be happy with that. They're going to push even higher. So we went and took a look here on a 2-hour chart. And I was talking about this also in the chat room, which is 1060, but I had this line coming across here, which I've got resistance here. Right here, you can see that coming across. See these touches here? And that's 1062. So I think I mentioned in the chat room, 1060, 63, okay? But it was 1060 was on our bias chart. Well, they've come up in here, and they've really pushed this thing. You got to sit back and see what this thing wants to do. Certainly don't step in the way of it. And there is a potential this could even go up here to 1095. There's a little bit of resistance at 1067. Actually, it's right there, which is, 1075, 1075. This market could make it if it wants to come all the way back up here. It could come up to 1095. I don't want to push it up that high, but you can see here, a good level. That would be a good target for the market if the market wants to make one more run up in here. I'm not sure if we'd even see that today. If we did, we do have some resistance at 1075. This 1062, I don't like moving the goalposts. You know, I've said that before. Okay, it's resistance until it breaks it. You know, moving it. Okay, now it's this high. Now it's a little bit higher. Now it's a little bit higher. So I'll tell you what, we're going to keep that 1062 there. Right here, 1062. If it breaks higher, you know they're going for 1095, but we'll keep that. But God, you think about what a heck of a rebound. And then defending that 927. So we'll stay with 1060. I mean, we in the chat room we said 1060, 63. So we'll stay right here, so to speak, right here. We call it 63. Right where it's at. And the next level is actually 95. So we're going to go like this. There you go. If we get past there, the door's open for 95. Whether they get there or not, I don't know. There's a little bit of resistance at 75. Let's see here. Support for right now is going to come in at 1024. This market's moved up a little bit higher here on the Aussie yen. I traded this a couple of times just for some scalps. It's just not. I know Amanda's very good with this, and even Blake alluded to, boy, Amanda's just tearing it up, trading all the crosses, and I've even looked. Now I'm actually starting to keep an eye now on even the dollar mex, because you know, some of these majors have been so quiet as far as I like to trade the euro, and I just scalp a lot for a little bit here, but it's just, you know, one-way street city. I just don't get, I have not been able to get a real good feel for this market. But anyway, getting back to this, let's take a look here on the fib. We actually will start tracking the peso, but I'm going to, you know, like I said, I want to just for the sake of throwing it on there, I wanted to. We used to, a long time ago, I used to track the peso, but I'm gonna have to same thing. I think in some ways, I think peso is probably gonna be a little bit easier than the Aussie yen, unless you hang on to this. To me, it's a little bit difficult to read lately. You can see how it's just up and down, then we dip, kind of up and down, we move. But we've made it here to the 38%. We'll put the resistance just a hair above higher, which is going to be 78.51. I think we already had that right here. Let's say it's 51. That'll be support 77.89. 77.89. And let's go move into the cash dollar index. Well, one of the things we talked about yesterday, we said keep an eye on this 97.09 because I thought that's where it was going to go to. I know some people were saying, no, it's going to stop at 97 and it's going to turn. And, I've learned the hard way. Don't fight this. Don't get in the way of some of these momentum moves. And it's much easier. Seems like it makes sense, but much easier if you are, it reminds me of what our cashier used to say. It's the second mouse that gets the cheese for obvious reasons. So sometimes you'll step in. I'll give you a good example here. We had 1038 here, so it would have been too quick on the draw and say, boy, I'm going to sell 1038, and then you see this thing barely even come back down to what, 34, and then start to continue to move higher. And that's what I'm saying is, don't be so quick to move. Sometimes it's better instead of trying to catch the top or the very bottom, is wait till the momentum turns, because then you got it going for you. So case in point, like I said, with the dollar yen, it was sitting there at 1030. It's like, man, I think that's all she has, and I can't wait. I got to sell it right now. And then all of a sudden you see here the momentum continues, because we talked about that from yesterday. Par 60, we're looking at where the resistance was going to come in. I think we're looking also at par 54. I think there's a 61% or something like that. But once again, like I said, you come in too quick. Well, it's the same thing here with the cash dollar index. We saw this 96.72, and that was just I don't call it minor level. It wasn't minor, but the market wanted to continue to push, and the market had in its mind, to go this 97.09. Another thing was the euro was already breaking in. If it got past this 12.85, you'd continue to see that momentum push lower, and certainly it has moved lower. We've already gone into the 60s. Henceforth, here we are. We're at the 97.09. We talked about this yesterday. I even think I mentioned in the chat room, or someone was asking me, I said, watch it. It was that same gentleman was asking. I said, watch it over the next couple of days, because it doesn't mean you have to rush into it. Let's see how it reacts at this 97.09, because there isn't any real resistance. I mean, there's some here at 42, a little bit here, but the real resistance wouldn't come until 97.64. Well, look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 straight days, and we are at a key juncture right here. You see that coming across here? And this isn't like a 30-minute or even a 2-hour. This is a daily right here, and 97.09 is significant. So let's see what it does today. Like I said, it made it to this part yesterday, so give it a couple of days. Let's see what it does here. And if you were to, well, no, this wouldn't be, I was going to say if it was an evening star, but it would have to actually gap up a little bit. But it's kind of sitting there, and so this, very, very tight ranges, kind of finish in the middle. We could maybe see the market ease back, but we're going to have to let the market tell us what it wants to do. So once again, the euro's open to move to 12.19 to resolve itself on a daily. 12.34 is the intraday support, but let's see what this dollar index does from right here. Also, the cable's coming into some close support. So there's a little bit more resistance here at 97.20. You can see that right here coming across, and that is an actual resistance level. Let's right there. 97.19. So let's use that as our resistance for today. But the key one is this 97.09. Support is going to come in right there, 96.56. Look at the way this gold is just holding up like a champ. Unbelievable. I mean, we just, you know, look at the dichotomy. Look at that. The dollar index is pushing to new highs, and the gold is holding up like a champ. Unbelievable. You would have thought that this would have triggered, and we've even adjusted. Look at that for 1203. Actually, it wasn't bad then, putting it at 1203. I mean, that was on short-term support. And actually, didn't mean 1203, meant 1303. But with resistance at 13.15, so no changes here. We did make it up. It actually came down into the threes. And there's a resistance. So really no changes here in the dollar for right now. It doesn't mean we couldn't trigger a move, but no changes here. Let's go into the bund now. Keep an eye on this market if you're trading the euro here. Like I said, we're starting to see some good movement here in the bund, and we saw a pretty good little sell-off. And this thing was trading even in Asia. I think, I don't know if it was Greg or somebody mentioned that, you know, the extended hours, and sure enough, I was surprised. It was in Asia, and this thing was trading in Asia. It was moving. It had moved down to. I saw it move down to 95. I saw 94. And I'm like, wow, it's trading. Then 92, then 91. But this helped move the euro off of those lows during Asia, and we did see a nice little rebound. But the time this thing started to run, come down here, then we started seeing the bund recover. The euro turned around and took its dip. So keep an eye on this market. Resistance is going to come in right there at 66.07. Support comes in right there, 65.72 for now. And moving on to the DAX. Well, we're really tightening up here on the DAX. And you can see all these touches coming across. We're going to go with 11.204. And that meant to be 11.194. So 11.204. And we had our support down here, 10.942. They've really tightened this thing up quite a bit. And it's going to be 10,923. We may not even see that, but 10,923. But you can see the momentum still working lower here. And we're on the 30-minute here on the euro. And look how it stayed clean. Had a little bit of fake right here. And generally when you see, we use these exponential moving averages, you can see, look how long this thing has been on the sell. And you can see where it kissed right here. It remained in that cell. You had this little fake right here, which wasn't much, but a little bit. Generally, when you see a move like this and quickly come back down like that, then generally what it means is you're going to see an extended move lower. And the thought process being is anyone that said, okay, I think it's a buy now, and they get long, then they find themselves back underwater. Then it's a matter of how much further will it push, and so stops get taken out immediately. A few more people hang on, a few more hang on. That's why you generally see that type of a move when you see that. But you can see how long it's been on the sell mode in this exponential 30-minute. And they came back here, nice little rebound. It kissed. It never generated a buy signal. And we moved even lower again. And then we got this buy as these lows held, but it was a little bit of a fake, and then that opened the door for them to push lower. Well, we've just come back up here just to challenge the upper exponential moving average, and we're still pushing a little bit lower. So we'll see what kind of damage the dollar index can itself do today. Let's see if we pushed in here. That does it here for the European crossover webinar. I'll get the bias chart posted in the room, and thanks for joining us here.